I was looking up Assassin's Creed because of something in a tarot reading referring to the groups that are after me being like in the movie, and then I came across something about the apple, and I was got a download about, in the Garden of Eden, how there was the apple supposedly taken a bite out of or whatever. I mean, it doesn't say apple in the Bible actually, but the fruit. But okay, thinking of apple, which is what everyone tries to say it is, but I just had this download of the apple of our eye, and I was just thinking about the phrase, the apple of our eye is what we love. It's like what we behold, like with value. Like it would be like what we have utmost value for, or like the epitome of our love. And so I was thinking along the lines of the correlation between eating the fruit, which isn't really anything about sinning, but it's about gaining knowledge. So the knowledge that we gain when we become enlightened is because we've finally set our affection on, I'm thinking on ourself as the epitome of like, we love ourselves enough to stop listening to like all the other voices that are telling us to do something contrary than what our intuition is saying, because our intuition is always trying to lead us. And even in our headspace is the way that our spirit guides, who I believe are our equals, they are not to be worshipped, but the way that they communicate is often in our headspace, like in our, it doesn't have to be like, I know some people do, and I talk out loud some, I process out loud some, but I don't have to say everything out loud so that my spirit guides will hear me. They are right, like they're able to communicate with me beyond any means of like my body, or even like silence of verbal communication is not stopping our communication. And what I used to believe was the Holy Spirit, according to like the biblical context, leading me in this way or that way, often, especially as things got worse in the marriage and the home situation, my intuition was actually opposite to what the Bible said. And I remember that really used to create a struggle for me, because I would really be perplexed and go to God crying, like in prayer, like poring over the scriptures and just sincerely questioning like why, almost trying to find the verses to support the way I was feeling, because I knew that what I was feeling was true, knowing the way I was being treated was so wrong. But then the Bible was telling me things like suffer wrong, and kind of like, all the verses that talk about carrying your cross and being willing to suffer like Jesus suffered for you, and taking it back through that line of, it all becomes about being willing to suffer and submitting to suffering. But after so long, in this, what is now 28-year marriage, 25 years before I filed for divorce that I still don't have, that's a long time to just have these kind of horrific things happen. Like really there was something every day, but the things that would be constituted violence were more sporadic. But for anybody who has been psychologically abused, like it really is like equal. What I dealt with was equal to like in foreign countries, like a prisoner of war, like whether it's a man or a woman, but someone who's being taken and held hostage against their will and treated, maybe we might think of it more if it would be a woman, treated more like sexually violent in a violent manner. Like I was dealing with that. I was dealing with just And so the apple, the apple of our eye, I'm almost going to look that up, more the exact definition of what that means. I think I know what it means, but I just think there's something there about the apple, you know. I mean, even the Apple computer logo has the bite taken out, like, you know, or the store that sells like the negligees and whatever else. I've never gone into the Adam and Eve lingerie or whatever stores they are. I don't know if they sell porn or what too. I don't know, but you know, it's Adam and Eve, or is it Apple and Eve? I think it's Adam and Eve, but you know, there's on their logo as well, there's an apple with the bite taken out. So like, it would be pretty, you know, pretty well, you know, understood that the fruit was an apple, even though I think that the whole idea of Genesis now, I no longer believe that it was actually something that truly happened. If it's the whole thing is speaking more in like, it's all more, the whole Bible is much more of a metaphor, including Jesus and Satan being really more archetypes. But there's something there to the apple and the apple of our eye, and just thinking of even like we call it, you know, the third eye being open. Like, enlightenment for me has been the actual true new birth that I thought I had experienced 25 years ago when I became a Christian. And you know, in the Bible, it talks about when Adam and Eve were like, supposedly, okay, taken, banished from out of the garden. Then there was like set up guards, and like, I don't know if it says like a fire around the tree of life. But basically, you know, it said when they were still in the garden, it was like God was talking to somebody, which that's a whole other story. But you know, lest they put their hand forth and eat and basically have eternal life, and there be no Christ. This is, you know, that's actually more accurate. I mean, we don't need anybody else to put our hand forth per se, you know, in a metaphoric way, and partake of the fruit of the tree of life and have immortality. And you know, there's something to the apple of our eye, and just self-love, no longer wearing any mask for anybody, like being okay with people not liking you, instead of letting it. I used to think about this too. I really, because I think about things a lot. I did understand that the church leaders and, you know, the abusive husband, I did understand like everyone else saw their opinion as somehow like mattering more than mine. Like, that definitely was something that I thought about a lot, because I did, on who I really am, which was so suppressed back then, but I didn't believe that. I didn't believe their opinions had, like, I would have believed it had more weight because of Bible verses of hierarchy, but I didn't, on a soul level, I did not believe that they like somehow mattered more than me, like as a person, or that their opinion, which, you know, their opinions were always against mine. Their opinions were always, if I brought a problem to church leaders about violence in the bedroom or violence some other way, I was always dismissed in some way, in very overt ways sometimes. But basically like a pat on the shoulder and send me home for another few years until it's something else so horrific and I would try again. And after so long of trying, you know, well, I'm just very determined, but you know, it did get harder to try because it was so discouraging knowing that I wasn't going to find help, but I always hoped I would. So turning, like, from all of, even while I was still Christian, it took a year and a half for me to truly deconvert and say, like, okay, you know what, I'm actually not a Christian. And I didn't believe that was possible, of course, when I left. I found, like, if you want to say tree of life, eternal life, however you want to say, or if you just say, like, I found peace again, joy that I have never known because I had a really fucked up childhood. Like, and probably more peace than I've ever known too, for the same reason. I don't believe that I was born, like, I don't believe in original sin. I actually would believe more like some people are, more demonic, and some people are more righteous kind of from the get-go. These would be so contrary to my old Christian beliefs. I think the people that are like sociopaths, psychopaths, like, there's a lot of evidence that it isn't from childhood trauma, that it's actually their brain is different. Like, think of all the childhood trauma I've had. I've had probably more than most. And, molestation since infancy, like at least by 4 months of age. And all the abuse that I've taken from the husband, and just everything, like, from society, that just being rejected. And here, like, and I don't say this to be like boasting, but like, I've had pain and I've worked through the pain, but I don't have hate, or I wouldn't think of ever even trying to cheat any of these people, like, let's say financially or in some way, some tangible way. Of course I wouldn't violently, but even in non-violent ways, there's no part of me that wants to, like, harm them or take from them. I will be getting back what's been stolen from me through energetic means or any other means that I was completely unaware of, because I was the person avoiding all magic and not watching movies or TV shows that had even just, simple, like, childish, pull the rabbit from the hat, like, magic tricks or anything. I certainly didn't. I never still have watched Harry Potter or any of those things, and I would have avoided even things that I used to watch as a kid, like The Wizard of Oz, and so I, like, avoided magic because of the things the Bible talks about magic. I would have seen tarot reading or anything in that whole department as something to completely be, staying separate from, which is why I was so kind of like, well, am I going to be an atheist now? Like, I still believe there's something, and it was all a process, but I didn't realize, like, what was true even as I was deconverting in a very natural way from Christianity, because I just had a lot of black and white thinking from the Bible. And I don't know, I'm just thinking about the things in the Bible. They're really more like, they're not illusions, they're like painting a picture of things that are true, mixed with complete bogus, false, blatant and subtle lies, all mixed together. But the things that are true are really more just, metaphoric, and painting that picture. Going inward and saying yes to myself, like putting myself above everyone else, which I would have, as a mother, thought, oh no, I would always put my children first. But, like, I have finally realized when I was being hunted, if I don't care more about myself, I will not be alive to care for any of my children. I have to, at this time, care more about myself and hope that by spiritual forces and just, like, what's written in the cosmos, that my children will be all right. Because I can't just go into whatever when there's all these people hunting me still, and the law isn't listening but I know that these things are coming to light. So going inward and caring about myself and me becoming the apple of my eye was to partake of the tree of life. And it's just been this whole, like, my spiritual gifts. I always had a strong intuition. I was just suppressing it because of what the Bible said. That's why I stood up for myself so much. I know that some of the things, if you looked at it from the outside in, you might think I was a doormat, but I've never been a doormat, and I've never been passive. I tried to be meek, and the Bible talks about the wife winning her husband by being meek and quiet, and I think some people take the word quiet to mean the way we would use it in common day English, and others say no, it doesn't mean not to talk, or it doesn't mean to really be quiet. It just means, almost to be more, just another way of saying meek. But either way, I was being accused of being just too much and so much and this and that, even when I was suppressing myself. Now I know that's because they were feeding off of me, and so many people were feeding off of me, whole churches, and my whole family, like both sides of my so-called family, and building fortunes off of me. And that's spiritual. That's who I am and who I always was. And whether I'm a reincarnated Egyptian or some other goddess, and I don't want to be worshipped or something. That's not at all what I mean. But just, there is something about me that these people saw in me when I did not perceive it. And because of rejection, my whole life, there was a part of me that always kind of wished I wouldn't be so much. And I tried, especially among the Mennonite churches, to, if I could just be like these people who seem so quaint and so holy and wholesome. And, there's always been this very strong, like, sexual nature about me. And that's why for years, for 20 years, I didn't listen to any secular music, but I also got to where I hardly ever danced, and I love to dance, but the dancing that I would do very occasionally would be more like ballet, and the kind of dancing that I like to do that. I like any kind of dancing, except for maybe country line dancing, but I like dancing, but the kind of dancing that I might more be inclined to do is that it's all improv, but is very sensual. That's just like, and so then I would have all those years been thinking almost like any kind of sensuality, especially with your body, is bad. I didn't think it was wrong to have sex, but with your husband, of course, but I was so suppressed, and so there's this part of me that is very strong. It's the sacral chakra. It's where we get our creativity. I'm very creative. I've always been very creative. I know how to do a lot of things because I've had a strong desire to learn. I'm very self-educated. I wanted to learn how to make this or do that, and I don't necessarily need anybody to point me in the right direction. I'll seek out the library books or just try. I'll just try. Look, I think I can take these mica powders, and I think I can make some oil paint. I think I can do this, and I think I just think I can try at least. And anyway, that creative / sexual essence has always been very, very strong. And as someone who did not really believe in magic, I believed more in dark forces being, Satan and demons, which is very similar to what the truth is. It's just that it's not really Satan. And the whole thing of Jesus, who I saw more as God, but Jesus, or a God the Father and Son, that's not the truth. The truth is more I don't even, I'll even definitely admit I don't know exactly, but what I think is that it's more like spiritual beings, and some are, more destructive than others. Um, any entity that would want people to sacrifice humans or be okay with children or anybody being sex trafficked or raped. I want to say especially children, but that kind of entity is, what we would refer to as demonic. But the thing is that these people who do this stuff are that. They're just alive in a human body. The ones that would be like that and don't have a human body currently are just, this is just my idea, my take on it. But I think of it being more like they've passed out, they've died from if they were here before. And do you see what I'm saying? Like, the body isn't really making the difference. So it's a demon one way or the other, with the body or without the body. And likewise, that's why sometimes people like myself are referred to as earth angels. But like, I'm in a body, but my guides they're righteous, they're upright like me. They see all this stuff, and they're gonna be working and already are working to bring about justice. Somehow they're able to see all the, there's not a conversation or an action that's not known. So in some way, shape, or form, these spirits have the ability, the way that I would have used to thought about like God in the Bible, like God the Father or God just in general, being omnipresent. Somehow there's that ability, because they know if, like, even in the next room over, I might not hear every little detail, but they hear and they know, and they're working things out, like, similarly to the way I used to think God was. But they speak to me through my inner dialogue. And because I have questioned, do I need to light a candle? Do I need to do some of these more ritualistic things that some tarot readers or some spiritual or professing spiritual people, I'm sure some of them are true spiritual people, like upright spiritual people, say, oh, you need to light, oh, it needs to be a white candle, and you need to do this, you need to do that, and you need to pour out the food offering. And I was just asking my guides the other day, yesterday maybe, 2 days ago, like, this is not the first time I've asked them, but I've just said, after once again a tarot reader was referring to that, I'm like, y'all know that I kind of think that's a little odd, and I don't really feel good about that. Like, y'all let me know somehow if that is what I'm supposed to do. At this point, I don't feel like I'm supposed to go against my conscience after all these years recovering from going against my conscience. So I don't think I'm supposed to go against what seems right to me just to do what the tarot reader thinks, or because a whole bunch of people think that's what you should do. So does that make sense what I'm saying? So like, I was kind of like, and I've also been saying, hey, like, if y'all want me to talk to you more, could I see you? I don't know what I'm dealing with here. Some people say dragon spirits or this or that. Like, could I see you? Could I, then I would talk to you more. But then I was listening to this one reader. She's quite different. She doesn't read cards, she just more channels, and I channel. But she was just talking about how, like, some of you, your guides are, it was like the very next day or something, it was like, your guides are speaking to you through the processes of thought. This is how you connect with your guides, this is how, and I just really felt like it was an answer, similar to the way people say, oh, this is the answer of prayer, but it was an answer. And it really helped me to, like, I'm saying this was like yesterday, but it really helped me to realize, like, I don't have to go and do anything, especially that I don't feel comfortable at this point doing. But I think that my spirit team, my guides were, trying to help me all the way back when, and that's very hand in hand with my intuition. And like, I just knew I was supposed to leave Tracy like for over a decade, and really talked about it. And actually my oldest daughter, because of our beliefs and us being basically like the two solid Christians in the house, and her being so much older than the other kids, you know, she was probably 16 or something, but she was, you know, she was like, Mom, you can't, like, God hates divorce, and Dad wants to live with you, he's happy to dwell with you. And I was like, well, I know all of that, but I just really feel like this is just, I'm not supposed to keep doing this, it's just too much on me. And I didn't know anything about destiny swapping or siphoning energy. I mean, I would have understood the concept of someone draining your energy, like on a very surface level, like you might be around like an annoying person or something and feel like, you know, like if you're at a party and you get stuck with someone who's just like, rah, 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 you know, I understood the concept of being drained in that way, but I didn't understand anything like magically that people could actually like manifest off of you, and I didn't even know what manifesting was. So I was really in a prison, in a mental prison, especially the last 10 years. And breaking free came from putting myself first, becoming the apple of my eye. And that was basically my point. I've gone off on a rant. So